You're listening to the Simplify Business with Bryony podcast. I help simplify business and marketing for time-poor busy women who run passion-fueled businesses. Listen in each week as I share bite-sized business tips designed to not only empower you, but to help make your business life simpler. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Simplify Your Biz with Bryony podcast. For those who are brand new, my name is Bryony, and these podcast episodes are designed to empower women to live intentionally and help you succeed in your business. Now, I know you're busy. Let's get straight into this week's episode, which is all around balancing your business and the motherhood. And I want to be super clear here. I am going to give you heaps of tips in this episode, but I must stress I am in no way the perfect parent, the perfect mother, nor the perfect business owner. And probably the biggest takeaway that you're going to get from this episode is the balancing act is messy. It is constantly evolving, and certainly I know it to be true for me as my kids have changed ages. But it's about being flexible and keeping your eye on the prize, right? Whatever that is and whatever that looks like. So let's get that out of the way. All right, so I think the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that this doesn't happen overnight, okay? And certainly 10 years ago when I had my first bubba and I was at the helm of this business that actually was going gangbusters, particularly after people told me it was just a ridiculous business concept. But anyway, and what I found myself doing was I was being really reactive. I was a reactive mother because I was learning. I had no idea how tricky newborns were. I had no idea how tricky all the juggling act was. I had no concept of how much sleep I was not going to be getting, and all the moving parts, right? So really reactive mothering. And then I had this business that I hadn't stopped when I had my baby because, you know, how hard could that juggle be? And so I was being a really reactive business owner. I had staff on, but I hadn't trained them well. We had bookings coming in all of the time, and I didn't have a system set up for that. And so I was just bouncing between the business and being a mother. And I was frightened that if I stopped the business, I wouldn't be able to pick it back up again. I had no idea what that would look like. Anyway, key point here was a hot mess. And so my husband and I sat down, and I do reference him a lot in moving forward in my business because we both came from corporate backgrounds. And whilst it's easy to go corporate background and you're going to run your business in a corporate way, once you factor in a baby and all the hormones and the lack of sleep, a lot of rationality flies out the window. And that's something that people don't talk about. You know, anxiety rears its head. You aren't thinking clearly. You also have so much less time than you ever have had previously, okay? So we sat down and we had a chat about, well, what kind of parent, mother did I want to be? Because I'd left the corporate space because I wanted to be a really present parent. But just because my son was with me all the time didn't mean I was being a present mother. You know, I was often distracted. And then we had a chat about, well, what was the intention of the business? The very first thing, if you're taking notes, I want you to think about is setting your intention. For you, that may look like goals. It may look like casting a big vision, but you have to get really real. What are you doing? You know, and so once I put that into place, I then realized, well, if I wanted to run the business and be a really present mother, I couldn't do both at the same time. And I had really, really shunned the idea of care. What I really, really needed was dedicated days on the business and then dedicated days with my boy. And so that's what happened. The first step was getting him into really structured daycare where I knew, aside from him being sick, because I know that's what happens, I was going to get that work time where I could get everything done, not juggle. So I got really intentional about that. And what that meant was I was then working 3 days and then I was off for the 4. I was with him. I was doing all the things I wanted to do, you know, making the food and being present and singing and going to the library and all that kind of stuff, which was so, so lovely. And then I could just have fun and be the kind of mom that I wanted to be. the flip of that is it also meant I was really, really serious with the business. I only had 3 days to do it. I actually brought in someone to work alongside me. That was the very first step into, having somebody manage some tasks for me and really work out, well, okay, what does this look like? And what jobs can you do? And what jobs can I do? And it was, it needed to be fixed. It wasn't perfect, but it was the very first foray I had into, well, what does this business look like? What can this business look like? And where am I getting in my own way? So if you are finding yourself reacting to everything right now, I would say step one is going and working out your intentions for everything and for life. Like, what do you want your business to look like? What do you want your life to look like? What kind of person, what kind of mother do you want to be? Secondly, you need to embrace the fact that you are going to get it wrong, that there are going to be mistakes, that you haven't factored in everything. And the best example I have for this are those days where I didn't get the childcare because he was sick or he was up through the night teething and I was so fatigued. So the way I like to talk about it now when I am coaching or helping my members through the program is we always do things first time around, okay? So you put in place something and we call it version 1, okay? And what that means is that you're going to have to tweak. Because if you think, I'm going to put this in place and it's going to be perfect, then you really do struggle when you hit a wall and you have to make a change. And you are going to have to make changes because once you start embracing all of these things in your business, you're going to hit new heights. Okay, your business is going to move forward faster than you ever thought possible. And so I have used the phrase a new level, new devil. But it also means that you are keeping yourself really flexible and open and adaptable. You can pivot quickly. And it's so important to be able to do that. And I'll give you an example here. So I had managed to get the business to a really exciting place. We had set KPIs for the year financially, and I was hitting my Q4 financial goals because of our New Year's Eve bookings. We had a lot of them. It was wonderful. But the last New Year's Eve before COVID hit, and I ended up ultimately shutting my business down, was I spent that evening with my husband and my children glued to my phone, putting out fires. It was not worth sacrificing that one night. That for me, New Year's Eve is a really special night. I can't really explain it, but I love spending time with my husband. I love being present with my kids. I find it a really exciting night, and to sacrifice that for the quarter financials actually wasn't an option for me. And so we said that night, once we had a glass of champagne at 1 a.m., we said, okay, that's not happening again. So, 2020, even though we didn't know that was going to be COVID, we both said, yeah, no New Year's Eve bookings. So that means ramping up bookings throughout the quarter so that, so that New Year's Eve is off. And that's what I'm talking about, being really intentional with what kind of business you want to run and what kind of parent you want to be means that you have to be open to making those changes. It means you have to be open to just listening and being really honest and authentic with yourself. Because whilst that made me feel sick, honestly, that New Year's Eve was the worst New Year's Eve I've had in a really, really long time. I have never been so stressed in my whole life. I have a whole other episode around everything that went wrong that night. And yes, I could have put in place procedures, but it's one night of the year. Okay, and it's a really special night, and one that as the kids got older was never ever going to get easier. So for me, what I wanted to achieve in my life, in my business, I wanted that night free. I wanted to take from Christmas off and then not touch the business again until we hit January because they were going to be at school, right? So that was really, really important to me. Being intentional means setting clear priorities and making conscious choices about where you invest your time and resources. And it's about knowing what's truly important and focusing in on that. Like nothing else matters. Other people's opinions don't matter. Other people are not trying to do what you are trying to do. I am actually
trying to live a life filled with intention, not buffeted by other people's expectations, or what other people want me to do. Okay, that is how I live and what I hope to instill in you guys too. If you're here listening, I feel like that's what you're after as well. All right, I'm going to leave it there. If you've got any questions at all, pop over to the free group and we're going to discuss this in more detail over this coming week as school goes back after school holidays. Until next week, keep being inspired and empowered. Bye.